Now, see, my music was missing.
It was.
That time it was.
In the world. I'm very sad. Hey, good morning, everybody.
Howdy, folks.
We have a first timer. Hi, Alexis. Alexis. Yeah, that's right. I said it right. It's Alexis. I was like, sometimes it'll be like something else and I'll screw it up. Welcome to the Coffee Table Talks. We are here today with the ever present Will McCullen over there with the IT Center of Excellence from the PIMA Community College out of Tucson, Arizona, which is super fun and very cool. If you want to find out more about that, definitely hit Will up after the show. He will tell you all about it. And our special guest today is Gregg Laroche with a partner of SecureNation's PreVeil, which I found out about and was introduced to because a current client of ours desperately needed their help in some fun ways while trying to adhere to new compliance structures through CMMC with government contracting. So I hope that was... I always try to remember myself like 5 years ago, and then I hear what I say, and I try to make sure that would have made sense to me then. So if that didn't make sense, I'm so sorry.
Good luck with that.
Right? Good luck with that. So, Gregg, thank you so much for coming and hanging out with us this morning.
Oh, it's great to be here. And thanks for having me.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah.
Looks like we've got quite a few people in here. Hi, good morning, Josh and Whitney and Alexis. And oh, that's me. Okay, great. Cool. So, Gregg, why don't you start off by telling us a little bit about what it is that you do over at PreVeil, what PreVeil does, and we'll take it from there. What do you say?
Sure. Sounds great.
Good.
So I'm the head of product at PreVeil, and PreVeil is a software as a service company. And we provide an end-to-end encryption solution that protects data in two principal areas. One is messaging, like email, that's encrypted end-to-end, and another is file sharing and storage in the cloud. And so we're a cloud service. You buy our product as a subscription. And because we implement state-of-the-art encryption and other zero trust security principles, our solution is sought after in a lot of regulated industries and to solve a lot of compliance related issues and challenges. So that's one of the reasons why we have a lot of experience dealing with compliance as a topic. So that'll be good to talk about that a bit.
Yeah, because like we were saying before we went live, you were commenting on how broad and wide and huge a topic compliance is, right? Because there's so many different compliance requirements depending on your industry, your vertical, your size, what type, are you a business to business or, in the case of CMMC, a third party contractor with government entities such as the DoD, Department of Defense. Sorry, I try to get out of my alphabet soup. So there you go.
That's a bad habit of mine. We have so many acronyms in our business. Yeah.
Yeah, I was actually there's a fun little security show. If you guys ever want to check it out, it's with Chris Roberts and Evan Franson and Brian Cloutier, and they sit on Thursday nights and just like complain, kind of. But it's a fun kind of complaining. And we lovingly on every professional circuit call it the show. If you don't know what it is, you can DM me later and I will point you to it. But they did a Jeopardy thing last night, and I was on the Jeopardy thing, and one of the categories was acronyms, and man, we failed. Even the people in the industry, we were like, we know what the acronym meant, but we didn't know, exactly what it was parsed out and stood for.
You can use it in a sentence.
I can do that. I can spell it and use it in a sentence. But yeah, some of them were like, I don't. So having friends like Gregg and PreVeil it's very helpful in my life whenever it comes to compliance stuff, because I need somebody to like dumb it down a lot of times and help me understand what we're going to be talking about or what kind of things we're trying to meet in benchmarks.
So that brings up a good question there. Great. Since you are an expert in the area more than many, how would you define compliance? What does it really mean to you? Because I know we also have things like students and stuff on the channel. So could you help us out with that a little?
Sure. Yeah. I mean, and I'll generalize a little bit because it is quite a vast topic, but I think in general terms, compliance is going to be driven by some sort of regulatory or statutory requirement, right? So somewhere, a governing body in a particular area of expertise is going to set forth a set of rules and standards that companies are required to follow. And there's a lot of different models for measuring compliance. Some of them are self-measured, where you have to audit yourself and attest whether you're meeting it or not. Some of them are third-party assessment-based, where a third party will come in and see if you're meeting the requirement. And some of them are government assessed, and a government agency will come in and actually do an audit of your systems and make sure you're compliant. And compliance in itself is usually a mix of technologies and processes and policies. So it's really a description of how you do things to meet those requirements that have been set forth in a compliance standard. And then, you're documenting that as a company. What do you do what are you implementing? What are your policies, procedures? What technologies do you use? How do you use them? And then that all generates a ton of paperwork that an assessor or an auditor could come in and review, and then decide whether or not your program is really doing what you say it does, essentially. And at the end of the day, all the things you're doing are meeting all those rules and standards that we just talked about. And there are a lot of them out there, so we won't go into that list because it's nearly infinite. But there are a lot. Yeah, there are a lot of compliance standards.
Yeah.
Just when you just take NIST, for example, the number of things that you have to comply with, a number of things that you do are absolutely huge. So I love this opportunity, because one of the questions that I'd like to throw past you is, okay, if you were to do it all from scratch, how would you set up compliance and what compliance should be? I mean, it's really complex, because you have many different standards, you have many different things pulling in many different directions. How would you do it to make a really good solution?
I mean, I could draw from experience for companies I admire that I think have really good, solid programs that really do what they say and make it a real integral part of their business. And I think that's where the key is, right? So if you're going to have a set of requirements applied to your market or your business or the area you want to do business or the customers you want to sell to, whatever's driving the need for you to have a compliance program, it really has to do with living what you're documenting and really making it part of the essential business thought and process. So every employee knows what they're supposed to do. Every system flows naturally with the business processes you follow. Every product you have fits in. And really, if you're doing all of that, compliance really just becomes an essential part of the business, and it really isn't a separate thing, which is what you want. I think that really illustrates the difference between a good program and a less good program is are you really living it? Is it part of your business, or is it just a thing you do to satisfy the auditors on the side, which really is the wrong way to think about it. Right.
Right. And a lot of people in the industry always refer to that as just simply checking some boxes, right?
That's
For
right.
everybody that wants to know the short answer of what Gregg just said. These are the people that walk around with the clipboard and go, whoop, good enough. Right. Yep. That's not good enough, right? That's an argument that's longstanding in cybersecurity community for a while. Does compliance mean that you're secure?
Right. Yep. Yeah. And the good example of that change in approach has to do with the CMMC, which is one particular compliance standard that applies to the Department of Defense supply chain, or what's called the Defense Industrial Base. And that's a standard that's moving from a historical point of view of checkbox over to a maturity-based standard. So actually proving that you have a mature implemented cybersecurity program, as opposed to checking boxes and having a plan of action to close items. They're moving from a a checkbox based assessment to really a pass fail assessment, which is a big difference. So it's really sending a lot of ripples through that particular industry right now.
In a previous episode, Will and I had the pleasure of sitting down with Chris Golden, who was one of the founding members of the board for the CMMC, and discovered that the CMMC was stood up because the government basically came to the community and said, you figure it out. You tell us what to do. Do you think maybe some of the positive changes that we've seen in moving from just compliance check boxes to actually being able to,
I think we lost Rachel.
Whoops.
I didn't miss the second half of her question.
For a moment, I thought it was me, and I'm like, oh, no, not my internet. Yeah, so taking that from, she'll come back and finish that question because I think she had a punchline at the end.
Yeah, she was getting there, yeah.
Yeah, well, I think that's really interesting because, for so long, I've been in education for a long time, right? And so much of it has been make it work, right? That has been the big factor of the industry, is just make things work. And now when you throw compliance, it says, no, it's really got to work right. How much do you come across that as a change?
Yeah, I think it goes back to what we were talking about a second ago, where you're moving to a world where, I think, going back to Rachel's earlier comment, like why the CMMC was formed, I think that's an important notion. And it was because the defense supply chain was hemorrhaging information to, let's face it, our adversaries. And so, and those adversaries were attacking the supply chain, which had the less evolved cybersecurity practices in place. But yet they were already subject to this, what we would call legacy compliance scheme that obviously wasn't really effective, and information was being stolen despite the kind of the approach that was taken in the past. And I think that really speaks to your question as well, which is how do we go from a make it work shoehorn type of model to one where we're really trying to achieve the security objectives in the end, which, because as you say, compliance all by itself doesn't necessarily guarantee security. It has to really be, both. It has a more holistic approach where the security practices are part of the compliance standard, but actually when they're implemented properly and embedded into your business processes, they're effective, and they do stop that information from flowing out to unwanted places. And I think that's been an important part of the shift we're seeing in that defense industrial base example. And I think we're going to see similar evolution and shifts in other markets in the future. It's not really just going to be the DIB. The defense industrial base is really a really important experiment that I think as practitioners we should all be watching very closely, because I think what we're going to find is that it's a better way to approach this historic problem, and it will be implemented in other markets and other ways, a similar type of approach, I guess.
That's really cool. How about folks like small business and things like that? That typically that's been very costly, and that's been very difficult because we've got a lot of small business here in Tucson. Right. And so they need a tech solution for X.
Yep.
They don't really know how it works necessarily. They definitely don't know all the fine elements of technology, and it becomes very expensive to hire folks to make sure that all those fine details are checked. Do you have any thoughts or ideas for how things might change for the better?
Yeah, and it's a really important topic in the market today, because you're absolutely right. It's a huge dilemma. How do we achieve this highly complex set of requirements in a small business where I have limited resources. I don't have a compliance person on my staff. I may not even have a full-time IT person on my staff. I'm a small business. I'm running at full speed and I don't have time to stop and change everything I do and rebuild my business processes. So it creates a big dilemma for these companies that the really large companies don't have, because they have the resources and they have the staffing and they can make these implementation changes over time and are in much better position to do so. So yeah, what does a small mid-sized business do? And what we've seen is a combination of the right amount of technology, a technology that can be implemented without big disruption to your business, like kind of a drop-in type technologies, like we like to say we have at PreVeil, and combine that with some expertise. So we're not saying hiring consultants for a permanent basis or for really large scale contracts, but bring in experts that can help you implement these technologies. We have partners in our channel that are combining PreVeil with other things like documentation and other technologies to help small and mid-sized businesses build a program in a way that doesn't either disrupt their costs so greatly that they can't afford it, and also don't disrupt their business in a way that they can't tolerate, because they really don't have, like we said, they don't have the luxury of being able to stop everything and change how they do everything. So yeah, it's a big challenge. What we like to think as a vendor, we're part of it. Like that's an important mission for us at PreVeil, is how do we help the small and mid-sized business? Because we think we have a really good solution there because of the way we approach data security and data protection. And we're seeing that kind of proving out now, as it's early days for the CMMC in particular, that example, but we're already seeing a tremendous amount of traction and success from the mid-market that are looking for alternatives. They're searching for solutions that will fit their business model, and we're connecting with a lot of that in the business on the business side. So that's good proof for validation for a lot of the things we believe as a company, but it's also good proof that there are ways to solve the problem. It's not all it's not insurmountable, which is kind of how it gets framed sometimes. I think we're finding that there are ways to do it. You just have to pick the right resources.
So if I understand that correctly, it sounds like you're kind of building the compliance hooks into the product, almost like one would do an API, right? To where you already part of the package have the compliance elements worked in. Is that a correct statement?
Yeah, I think a lot of it, what we do, we provide data protection, right? So a lot of our features actually help with the compliance requirements, like the way we handle encryption and the way we handle access control and the way we handle permissions and logging and all these technical details that cover areas of the compliance standards. So the compliance standards require those things. They require access control, and they require encryption, and they require other things we do. So our technology crosses off a whole bunch of things, right? So we cover a lot of those controls. And when you talk about in terms of how we hook in or like an API type model, I think that's all in terms of documentation, right? So how does our documentation, we provide kind of framework documentation that can help a company begin on their journey of compliance, and we provide kind of templates, if you will, and you can take those documents and add to them your own things, other things you're doing in your business, and come up with a program, and you can do it in a way that's realistic and achievable, as opposed to kind of having to throw everything out and start from scratch. And so that's that's kind of how we see. Because technology alone isn't going to deliver compliance, right? It's going to be technology plus process, plus documentation, plus training. Like all the elements have to be there. But technology can play a big role because we can cover a lot of the ground with kind of one solution, as opposed to trying to put together a whole bunch of things or do it all yourself, or try to create a mix of solutions that may or may not work and will cause actually cost a lot of time figuring out. So a solution like what we offer, we think fits well for a lot of these use cases.
Yeah, that's one of the important reasons why I love that we're partnered together is because I come across cybersecurity professionals, CISOs, IT directors, the one lone IT guy, right? Or girl. And that's happened. But it's so overwhelming that they feel like they're being squashed by it. And then you do that fun thing that you do whenever you get depressed by overwhelming things and you're an anxious person, where you're just like, I'll do it tomorrow. Never mind. I can't even think about it right now at all. I can call on the guys at PreVeil whenever I run into one of those people. And don't feel bad if you're a small or medium team member or that lone person, right? That this is you, because it's not just small and medium business. There's no magic that happens when you get to large enterprise and now you just know all the things. Okay, that's not how that works. I've run across large enterprise organizations that 10,000 employees and up, and you want to know how many people are on the cybersecurity team? And they're just holding the whole thing together. But they have to ask questions and find resources and everything else, just like you do too, and have conversations with folks like Greg and the guys over at PreVeil and girls over at PreVeil. Actually, my best contact over there is Orly, and she's a lady person. But anyway, diversity. It's handy just to have somebody untangle it for you. And it's not like a lawyer thing. It's, everybody's always afraid to call a lawyer into anything because they're like, oh, they're going to start charging me after 15 minutes. No, it's free to have a conversation with the folks at PreVeil or Greg or any of the other awesome people that are with the company. And they want to help you. They don't want you to feel so weighed down and pressured over stuff. I mean, even if you're a student, you just want to find out more. I'm sure that they will all be very responsive to your email.
Yep. Sure. Yeah, we're in the mid. We're kind of in a really interesting position as a company because a lot of these things are changing, like we said earlier. So, I mean, it's fair to say the problem is not solved. We're still, leaking data, and we're still like all those things are still happening. But at least we can say we're changing, like we're changing how that problem is being approached, particularly in that one defense industrial base example I keep going back to. We're not doing it the same old way, and so it's going to take time. It's going to take years, but in the end, we believe it's going to be better. It's going across the board. Will the problem be forever solved for, in 100% way for every company on earth? Of course not, but the bar will be raised. And that's the goal. The goal is, how do we raise the bar across the board so that a higher tide floats all the boats, right? That's what we want. And so we believe in that mission, and we're right in the middle of trying to, help pull that forward. So it's an exciting time to be in this market and in this business. And it's exciting time. It's kind of an exciting time of change, and small companies like us that can move quickly. We're very interested in what we can learn and how fast we can go and how we can push things forward and help folks. So to your point, Rachel, we are definitely happy to help and happy to talk, and want to be kind of part of part of the change, as opposed to blocking it or fighting it, which there's a share of that to be seen as well.
Well, you also have the incredible part, right, that happens so much today. You hit this early on how you're changing culture of companies, not just coming in and saying, okay, if you're not familiar with compliance, if you haven't set it up before, here's all the things you have to do. No, you're coming in and saying, your whole dynamic has to change and build that compliance into things, because as you were also talking about, it's been our adversaries that are heavily trying to take advantage of this, right? So this is kind of needed to help save the nation, right?
Yeah, there's no doubt that if depending on whose numbers you want to believe, there are many billions of dollars worth of intellectual property leaving the defense industrial base, taken from various nation states. And that's a big problem. And basically, it's all the investment in time and inventions and innovation that our supply chain is putting in to this, the projects that they're working on, and having that just all be shortcut and taken away is a huge disadvantage for us as a nation. So yes, I think it's an important goal, and it's it's a long time coming. I think its time is well past where we should have been kind of raising the bar for our cybersecurity across that whole supply chain. But we're in the midst of it now, so that it's a good trend. There's a lot of positive trends going on, like the president's recent executive order, recommendations that we've seen coming out of the NSA and the Department of State. There's a lot of really positive change being articulated by some of these leaders, and that's good. That's good for all of us.
Yeah, I agree. I know I shared a post last week about, or maybe 2 weeks ago. I don't know. There was a Disney trip in between then and now. Time magnets. How do they work? Anyway, put a post out. Yeah, wibbly wobbly. About Biden's executive order, and a lot of the comment section was too little, too late.
Yeah,
I'm not going to say better late than never, because and it's these negative things where people within our own community are not grasping a hold of this and letting it champion what they've been saying for years. They're disregarding it, which I think just feeds into the attitudes of the rest of the people that they're around, right? That they're like, oh, this isn't going to stick or whatever. I mean, if you stand up and you point out, no, they're getting behind this and this is happening and we're going to do it. And damn it. No, you can't just, swat it away. We can actually make some serious changes here. And I think it's great to see vendors like PreVeil, really pick that torch up and light the way. And hey, if you don't understand this, that's okay. Come ask. If you want help understanding, how this is going to affect your business processes and everything else, come ask. We're right here. There's no per hour fee about it. We're just going to try and help you the best way we can. I love that. That's favorite.
That's good to hear. I think there's a lot of, as much negativity as we can experience. There's also some positive change happening at the same time. So hopefully that wins out, and we can see the fruits of some of this labor, because we're getting there. It is going to take the cooperation of all the different constituencies, the vendors, the consulting people in the middle, the ultimate prime contractors, the defense agencies. In this one particular example, the supply chain, it takes a lot of folks to make this happen. And it's a lot to ask in a system that's been around for a long time. So yeah. It's like we say, we keep coming back to it. It's exciting to be part of it. We believe in it, and every day we're seeing little signs that we're getting there. So that's all positive.
Yeah, I think as a whole, there are several things that we kind of suck at, but one of the things that I've noticed that this is just personal feeling. So nobody, please don't hurt me. I feel like really the criminals have such a leg up on us because they so easily collaborate and so easily work together. And you'll see it in the code from one ransomware to the next. There's pieces of the last one in there.
Yep.
That are still being carried over because they're building on top of what they've already built. Right. And it's successful. Look at it go. Okay. It's working. So we need to also step up, collaborate, lock arms together, and to combat that sort of presence. We need to build off of each other and keep having those conversations, because the bad guys are having conversations about how to build off of themselves to come get you, right? I mean, ransomware is a thing that, bad actors can go and buy as a service. Okay.
Yeah,
they can say, can you please target this company? And the bad guys go, yes, we can. Here we go.
Yep. They'll even go collect the ransom for you. It's as part of their service. Yeah. It's pretty scary.
I mean, you see the headlines about, the recent attacks and, we're not going to attack hospitals and all this stuff and that and the other. What? Why would you believe that? Why? They're out there to get you because they like money. They don't care. They don't care about you or your family or what you're going to be missing out on. They just really like money. That's it. They don't really care about anything else. That's the big driver right there.
We got to plug the holes when it comes down to it. We got to plug the holes, and compliance is a big part of that.
It is.
But if coming from a college point of view, if you're a student, what kind of new technology professional would you be interested in hiring? What if you were to try to prepare for IT, because you talked about these changes that are coming and that how, this is going to rock the industry. If you were an IT professional, wanting to get into IT, how would you prepare for that? What is the best way to go?
Yeah, I have a bias because we're a cryptography based company, and our company's founding technologies were basically influenced or discovered by applied cryptography research that was going on at MIT. And out of that research, led by our chief technology officer, who was a crypto professor at Berkeley, and very well known, I would say that's where there's a lot of innovation happening in applied cryptography. So the models that are emerging are zero trust based crypto models that assume attack has already happened or will be accepted or is inevitable. So in a world where a successful attack is inevitable, how do you protect the data? And systems that are designed like that, like ours, that's the better way to protect information, because just assume your server will be compromised. Okay, assuming that's true, how do we protect that data? An attacker gets my whole server. What do they get? And can they exploit it? And so, that kind of thought, I think, is going to be very important in the future of IT. And my particular advice would be, look at applied cryptography as an emerging field. And there's a lot of really cool stuff happening there. And it's not just all blockchain. It's other things as well that are very relevant and will solve real problems. And so, that's kind of what I'm thinking. And also the concept of zero trust in general is a very interesting and compelling trend in our cybersecurity market, and how many vendors are embracing it and many legacy systems have not yet. And so it's creating an interesting dichotomy between these, legacy technologies that are not zero trust based and a whole bunch of new innovative technologies that are, and how do they play together, and how do you create a more secure environment knowing all that. And so there's a lot of interesting things happening. So those are a couple of areas I would think about.
Cool. There could be a whole bunch of shows right there.
We could do this for days, you guys. Woo! And then we could just, hit all the compliance things. Wow, that would be a whole year's worth of stuff. Wow, it'd be awesome. Well, Gregg, I want to thank you so much for coming and hanging out with us this morning, and thank everybody who stayed and hung out in the chat and had a little coffee break with us this morning to dive into something super hyper cool like compliance. I hope we made it a little enjoyable for you. Right? Maybe lift some of the anxieties you may have been internalizing about your own compliances and how you're going to get there and everything. Like, it's okay. We're all lost. It's fine. You're going to be fine. Will, did you have any closing statements? And then we'll let Gregg take us out.
Well, I love your perspective, right? changing it into a culture, changing it into something that is day by day and making it real, right? Instead of what folks have been inundated with the past are these big checklists that are just absolutely overwhelming. And that rolling it into the services and stuff is absolutely fantastic. Thank you so much for what you're doing.
Yeah, thank you. It's fun to tell the story, and as a product guy, I'm always happy to talk about product and what's happening in our market. So that's it's fun for me. I appreciate the opportunity to talk with you guys, Rachel and Will.
Yeah, this has been fun. We'll see y'all next week. We're going to have Gabriel Freelander on to talk to us about free security awareness training. And it's in short enough videos that it even holds my ADD attention span. So it's one of my favorites. Anywho, we'll see y'all next week. You have a great weekend. Thanks so much. Bye.